Tickets for Jpegmafia's upcoming tour have officially gone on sale starting this weekend, and so does that mean we can start speculating and forecasting that his long-awaited 2024 album might finally be coming very soon? We'll see. We're going to break down what we know and what we can speculate on in this video and all the updates we've got. What's up, y'all? Devon here again for Obligatory, showing up for you weekly every Friday with a music news and new music recap. Today is June 14th, 2024. You might be able to tell I am not in my normal setup here. I'm on the other side of the country. It's very late at night, so you can tell I'm really about this life. Let's go ahead and get into the news. So, yes, Jpegmafia has announced a new tour, and we have been waiting on this new album of his literally all year, starting since January 1, when he dropped off the update that he was even thinking about dropping an album on New Year's Eve 2023. So, did not expect to get here into June and still not have a project, honestly, from me and my perspective. Since then, we have been getting periodic updates on the album, usually on Twitter or Instagram directly from Peggy. Most recently in April, he said, I'm working on the thing nonstop. I'm locked in. And it's still coming very soon. So here we are a couple months later. Every once in a while, too, he'll post like who he might have been in the studio with or who he's hanging out with. Last week, we saw him and Kenny Beats and Denzel Curry together. You might have seen he was on a recent Ravina single for the album that she's dropping today. And so I think it's at least worth speculating that they might be doing a two-way feature situation, and maybe we hear her on his album. Then with that most recent update in April, we saw him also post a picture with Mark Rebelé in the studio, who honestly I don't know anything about. I might not have even said his name correctly just now. He's someone I see like clips of on the internet, and he just looks like someone I want to not pay attention to, just like on vibes. So not someone I expect Jpegmafia to really collab with, but also I literally don't know anything about the guy. Very potentially we might hear him on this project in some way. All of that is great and is exciting news, and obviously we've been expecting this album literally all of 2024 so far, so it's got to be coming sometime soon. But I think the biggest piece of news we just got is that Jpegmafia is announcing a full-on US tour, the Lay Down My Life tour, as it is being called. And given the fact that it's kicking off in August, I think that gives us the month of July for this thing to come out. So that's pretty much the big news. And with that, you kind of can't help but think, is Lay Down My Life going to be the title of this album or related to the album title in some way? Now, an interesting little twist to this is that the venues hosting these shows have been posting the press release info along with the ticket sales. And the verbiage that has been popping up in these little bios, which I'm assuming comes from Jpegmafia's PR, says, and I quote, "Jpegmafia returns with a new album and worldwide headline tour titled I Am Peggy." Obviously kind of makes it sound like that's the album title and that was supposed to be the tour title. To be honest, it doesn't really sound like something he would actually name his album, maybe the tour, but also I don't really like the name either way. And since this has gone up, there's been an update, at least in places that I've seen, to say that the title of the album is TBD and that Lay Down My Life, is the name of the tour. That's at least a little something to read into with this album release. And again, it's feeling like July is going to be that month for this album to come out. So with all that, I'm kind of wondering what you are excited for or expecting with this new album. Obviously, Jpegmafia has done a lot of albums, doing a lot of stuff to this point, and he's going to try to outdo himself once again. I wonder what you think about the fact this has taken so long throughout the year, and if you think that kind of helps or hurts, the potential for this album. Personally, I'm someone who's like, we get so much music every week. Somebody holding on to their album and making sure it's perfect is no problem for me. Also, I want to give a shout out to Zack Fox, who has a new anime coming out produced by Gilga. So Zack Fox, comedian, DJ, actor, rapper, wears a lot of hats to this point. Now he's an anime show creator. This is a show that we've known about for a little while. We've known it's been in the works. Most recently, Donald Glover announced it via his Gilga Radio episodes when he was teasing out details about the Atavista release as well as his upcoming album, Bando Stone in the New World. The show is a brainchild of Fox and Chibu Okere, whose name I hope I'm saying correctly. They cited inspirations such as Trigger and Gainax and Sunrise Studios, Sunrise aka Bandai Namco, as well as like 90s and 2000s Cartoon Network and just general Southern living. This thing is based out of a Waffle House where like Waffle House employees are turning into Power Rangers or something like that. And knowing the stylistic humor of a Zack Fox, I think we can expect this thing to have a very absurdist and ridiculous twist on the humor and storylines. Zack and Chibu, they both kind of threw out a handful of things that they were directly inspired by in making this, but I've also seen a bunch of other people out on the internet kind of throw different comps out there, either in, the visual style or the humor style, from things like Jet Set Radio to Super Jail, Beautiful Joe, Dead Leaves, FLCL. Obviously, that is like a mix of video games and TV shows and anime, which is just a crazy pot of gumbo to be mixing up with everything else that comes up in the mind of a Zack Fox. It's very cool. Looking very cool, looking very much like something I'm interested in watching, and also Zack Fox is just obviously a very creative and multi-talented individual who has access to a lot of other very talented, creative, and powerful people. I love that this thing is coming from a completely Atlanta, Southern-centric crew. Just gives it a very real and unique identity. Pretty sure we do not have a release date for this thing. It is something they've been working on since 2022, and so we'll just kind of keep an ear out for more news soon. We also got a lot of news this week surrounding the super secret $2 million Wu-Tang Clan album, Once Upon a Time in Shaolin. If you've been watching my show, it's something I brought up a couple weeks ago, because starting this week, there is a museum in Australia that is hosting listening events of this album for people. Now, that came to be because there is a company that owns this album who purchased it from the government after the government seized it from Martin Shkreli, the person who originally bought the album at an auction, for $2 million. Well, now Martin Shkreli is back in the picture as the subject of a lawsuit from the current owner of the album. And they are suing him because he has made copies of the album. He played the album this week on Twitter in Twitter Spaces. It was a very low quality sound and about 1,000 people tuned in. They have already reacted with a lawsuit saying this has diminished the value of the album. You didn't already know there are a bunch of stipulations on how the album is supposed to be presented to people. They can have private listening parties, which is what's happening at this Australian museum. But this thing is not supposed to be played and available to the public until the year 2103. Now we have learned that the company that owns the album has been working behind the scenes with Wu-Tang members to sort of release this, quote unquote, release this thing to the public as an NFT, which, geez. But also, fans aren't really getting to buy this thing to have it now. So the way that I'm understanding that this works, again, the album was supposed to come out in 2103, but now they are making it so that if you pay $1, you can secure your own copy of this album when it comes out. And not only that, but when you buy a copy of the album for $1 or for cryptocurrency, you actually shorten the length of time on the timer that is counting down until this album releases in 88 years. And you can buy more and more shares of the album to reduce the time by more and more. And it's a lot of fucking money, obviously. Also, for the people who do actually pay for this, you do get something now. You get a sampler of the album that was curated by the album's producer, Civil Rings. So, I don't know. It's kind of an interesting idea. It's kind of a stupid idea, too. I wonder where you fall on that, but is this something that to you is worth spending $1 on? I also wanted to mention that there has been more news about a potential new Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg album coming out, which will be a sequel to their very iconic 1993 album, Doggy Style. Now that is, kind of cool news. The thing that's not really cool to me is that this album is supposed to be called Missionary. As someone who has Doggy Style in their top 5 rap albums of all time, I'm not fucking with this at all. Obviously, Doggy Style is yes, it's a sex position, but it's also a clever play on words with the name, and then just to go with missionary is, I'm not, it's just stupid. But aside from my grudge with that, we are getting this update thanks to Daz and Corrupt, who also just recently released a Dog Pound album. They were on the Drink Champs podcast, and they sort of confirmed what Snoop had been saying previously on the All the Smoke podcast earlier in the year, that him and Dr. Dre were working on an album together. They say this album is supposed to release in July. They're very close with both of these guys, so I assume that they know what they're talking about, and that's the news that has been making the round on this. It's another situation where I look at it and I just wonder what to even expect from an album like this coming 30 years after the last one. Obviously, for someone like me who wasn't even alive when the album dropped, it's one of my favorite albums ever. So exciting, but at the same time, I haven't been that sold on a Snoop Dogg album or a Dr. Dre album in quite a while. Keeping things on the West Coast for a sec, you might have also seen that Kendrick Lamar showed up for a surprise speech at the Compton University graduation ceremony. Now, nothing in that was particularly newsworthy for music purposes, but we are getting more and more noise surrounding a potential Kendrick album with this upcoming concert he has going on in Inglewood around Juneteenth. And the hope for me has been, at least with all the noise we've been hearing about him dropping an album, in May, and that didn't happen. We get a little bit more information with this upcoming concert as to what's going on there. Then from there, I want to give another shout out to the bands and artists who have continued to stand on pro-Palestinian business, boycotting and pulling out of concerts and festivals that are not aligning with that mission. So the most recent festival to encounter this is Download Festival. It's like the biggest punk, rock, metal festival that goes on in the UK, and it's a festival that's put on by Barclays, which is a UK-based, like, multinational, huge bank, who has like a lot of money invested in defense companies who are like actively supplying the Israeli military. With that, we have gotten recent updates directly from bands like Speed, Scowl, Zulu, Ithaca, announcing their intent to pull out of the festivities. The cool thing is Speed, Scowl, and Zulu, all Flat Spot Records bands, and a couple other bands that are also on the label, are setting up a pro-Palestine benefit concert. On to the notable new releases and editor's picks from this week of new music. There is a lot to be excited about for me. First and foremost, gotta go with No Worries, Why Laud. It's an album I've been waiting on for years and years. As you can see, I have a lot of albums on this list. There is a lot I'm excited to listen to from pretty much all over the map. A lot of good hip-hop, some good neo-soul and R&B, plenty of rock, punk, pop stuff too as well. Definitely let me know what you gave your first listen to this weekend. The singles were also pretty dope and came with some awesome album announcements. So we'll kind of move into that. Personally, I've been excited getting updates coming to Pete Rock's upcoming album. Finally, they dropped a date for that. It's coming in July. And a lot of really exciting indie rock stuff as well, from Niloufer Yanya to Enum Claw. We also got news of new albums by Toro y Moi and Channel Trace, who are kind of kindred spirits to me musically. So very full and eventful album announcement week this week. Albums releasing next week. I mean, there's definitely a couple things I'm interested in, but albums releasing the following week to wrap up June, it's probably going to be a pretty good one. I'm personally very excited about the Hiatus Coyote album, whatever this Lil Yachty and James Blake album is going to sound like, Megan Thee Stallion, Lupe Fiasco, Omar Apollo, Camila Cabello, like, it's a lot of names. Rest of the year, we got bangers. Claro, Denzel Curry, Porter Robinson, Raven Lenae, Niloufer Yanya, Jamie XX. I mean, damn. And I'm on vacation, so I'm going to get back to being on vacation. But thanks again for watching, as always, and I'll catch you on the next one, as always. All right? Peace out.